thunderstorms will spread at least 3 inches of snow across 18 states from Wyoming to New York today and tomorrow. Travelers should be ready for delays at airports as well as on highways. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org. Is this the title?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers are back at 500 after last night's 17-point win over Dallas at Crypto.com. Anthony Davis messed around and almost got a triple-double. 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists. D'Angelo Russell led the Lakers with 29 points. LeBron had 25 and 9 assists. The Lakers are at home Friday night against Brooklyn. LeBron's son, Bronny James, played a season-high 30 minutes last night in USC's Pac-12 conference game at Arizona. Bronny had 11 points and 6 assists. USC lost by 15. The Trojans are at Arizona State on Saturday. UCLA's men's basketball team overcame a 15-point deficit in the second half to win by 2 at Arizona State. The Bruins got 18 points from Lazar Stefanovic. Two historic HBCU football programs will play each other for the first time in 75 years. Grambling is hosting Tuskegee on September 7th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Climate is king.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do 4 things. Increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice.
We want cleaner air.
Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough. 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 If we care enough.
1, 2, 3, go! Ha ha! I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com or wherever you get your podcast and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, once a champion of school reform, Diane Ravitch became disillusioned with testing and privatization, which put her on a personal and intellectual odyssey, forcing America to confront the unintended consequences of its education obsession. Diane Ravitch, founder and president of the Network for Public Education, joins us today for a spirited dialogue, I am certain, in hour two. In our third hour, two conversations. Up first, a conversation with Dr. Stephen Williams about navigating the evolving world of plastic surgery, from battling bias to becoming the first black president of the American Society of Plastic Surgeons. Dr. Stephen Williams joins us again today at the top of hour three. On the B side of hour three, the host of HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher joins us on the backside of hour three. I look forward to our chat with Bill. I have a lot of friends, Bill's a friend of mine, personal friend of mine, and a lot of friends, of course, who watch Bill, and they keep asking me, why is Bill getting more conservative as he gets older? So we'll put that question to Bill. Is he getting more conservative, more cranky, more cantankerous, more right of center? People think that Bill Maher is really starting to shift and starting to change in his politics, and so we'll talk to Bill about that. He's on the eve of his, I think, 22nd season now. 22nd season on HBO. He's had quite the run. You recall him for years. He was on Politically Incorrect late night on ABC. Made the shift to HBO. Been there for 22 seasons now. So on the eve of his 22nd season. We'll talk at the bottom of our third hour today with our friend Bill Maher. In this first hour today, two more conversations on the B side of this hour. We'll talk presidential politics, that is, with the veteran and award-winning political reporter for the Boston Globe, James Pendle. And we will commence today's program as soon as I find him with our friend and brother, the prominent and powerful South Carolina Democrat and former House Whip Representative James Clyburn. Been wanting to get him back on the program. He's a pretty regular guest on this program, but he has made some news of late suggesting that he has his own concerns about the Biden campaign, particularly as it relates to its engagement with the black community. Now, you recall it was James Clyburn in South Carolina who helped to save the Biden campaign in a number of ways. There are two that come to mind pretty immediately. First, he mobilized with his endorsement, mobilized black voters in South Carolina and certainly African-American women to get behind Joe Biden. His campaign was flailing until South Carolina. They'd gone through Iowa, New Hampshire, get to South Carolina, and it is black folk who saved the Biden campaign. I asked on this program yesterday, what do black folk get for saving this democracy, not once, not twice, not three times, but more times than I can count? Every time this democracy is in trouble, they come to us to save the democracy. So we didn't just save Joe Biden's campaign. We, by rescuing him, helped to save this democracy. And here we are in 2024 being asked once again to save the democracy from him, from Mr. Trump, from authoritarianism, from anarchy. You've heard countless times what he intends to do if he is reelected. And Joe Biden can't pull this off, cannot pull it off without the votes of African Americans. Furthermore, South Carolina, as you recall, has been moved up on the calendar. So we saw the Iowa caucus on Monday of this week on the King holiday. That was for Republicans. Democrats had nothing to do with that. So their first contest will be in South Carolina. So James Clyburn is a bad man with a lot of power. He has succeeded in pushing South Carolina to the top of the map for Democratic voters. And so African Americans in South Carolina will have their say first when it comes to the Democratic nomination for president. And I suspect that once again, black folk in South Carolina will come to the rescue of Joe Biden and put his campaign on the right track. Who knows what might have happened in Iowa or New Hampshire, but black folk, I'm sure, will get his back once again in South Carolina. So Clyburn, with his endorsement and rallying the good people in South Carolina, save Biden's campaign, and I would argue save the democracy. Now, what we get for that, I do not know. Another conversation for another time, because we've done it, as I said, so many times. And we can't get voting rights passed, meaningful voting rights legislation passed, and I mean passed permanently, not every 20 years. We can't seem to get meaningful police reform passed. We can't get reparations, not even a bill to study reparations passed in the House as yet. So it raises a serious question as to what black folk have earned. What is the prize for saving this democracy from itself time and time again? So it wasn't just saving the Biden campaign, but he got Joe Biden, as you'll recall, to commit that were he elected, he would put an African-American woman on the Supreme Court. James Clyburn exacted that commitment, or extracted that commitment out of Joe Biden. And that went a long way, of course, to getting African-American support lined up behind him, and he kept his word. KBJ now sits on the U.S. Supreme Court, but Jim Clyburn has been at the center of all the Biden politics over the last 4 years, certainly. And I look forward to talking to him if we can track him down. This is not like him, so maybe there's a floor vote, or maybe he's called into something else. We'll try to find him. But those are the things I kind of want to talk to Jim Clyburn about as soon as we can track him down. But that's our rundown for today. Should be a great show. Glad to have you with us. I'm Tavis Smiley. More when we come forward.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
City of Los Angeles landlords that own rent-controlled properties, starting February 1st, you'll be able to increase rents by 4% for your rent-controlled properties. An extra 1% per utility up to 6% can be added only if you pay the entire gas and electric bill. And don't forget to give your tenant an advanced 30-day written notice for rent increases of less than 10%. It is state law. Learn more about the rent increase at housing.lacity.org. That's housing.lacity.org.
The thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it hurts to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. Only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer's suggested price. However, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. Excludes 8-count packs.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of this light of ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This light of ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This light of ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
Sounds different. Huh. This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley, who is supposed to be in conversation with James Clyburn. We just got word from his office that he is in a very important meeting that has run over, but we are expecting his phone call momentarily. So until then, you get me. I was saying moments ago that James Clyburn has been around for a long time and been at the epicenter of politics in Washington for decades. You recall he was the majority whip. So at one point he was the highest ranking African American in the House. Hakeem Jeffries, of course, now as minority leader, holds that mantle. But James Clyburn has been in a lot of struggles and a lot of fights. And I'm curious to get his take on how he thinks the Biden administration is doing at the moment. These polls, these surveys, these studies are pretty interesting. To put another way, they are a little scary, actually. Because every poll, every study, every survey that I've seen about Biden and the black vote at the moment suggests that his support is soft. And some polls suggest that's even softening. That is to say, in real time, the numbers are not going in the right direction. Kamala Harris was in, speaking of South Carolina, Kamala Harris was in South Carolina the other day. And while the audience, was happy to see her and cheered her on, there also were a number of African Americans who showed up in that audience to chant and to protest about a ceasefire. And so for quite some time, you may have seen the video of this on the news, for quite some time in her conversation, in her talk, she was interrupted. And it was very, very difficult for her to be heard by the audience over the chants of ceasefire. And so it's fascinating for me. And again, if we can get Clyburn here, Congressman Clyburn, before the bottom of the hour, before we are joined by our Boston Globe guest, political reporter James Tyndall, it's fascinating for me that African Americans, on the one hand, because so many of us are Christians, we understand that our faith connects us to the Jewish tradition, given that Jesus was a first-century Palestinian Jew. So that's our Christology is what it is. On the other hand, so many of us, in every poll and study and conversation I've been a part of, we empathize with the plight of the Palestinian people because we know what it's like to be catching the kind of hell that they are catching in Palestine even as we speak. And so it was fascinating for me to see Kamala Harris at this rally the other day trying to speak to an audience of black people, interrupted by a bunch of African Americans chanting, "What about the ceasefire?" Or they were chanting, "Ceasefire now, ceasefire now." She eventually sort of worked her way through that. But the optics of that were really fascinating for me. Again, to see this audience there to celebrate her, but a bunch of black folk in that audience chanting about this ceasefire. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that issue in particular cuts with African American voters. But again, the point I'm driving toward is that I have not seen any evidence that black folk at the moment, November is a long way away, but black folk at the moment are enthused about this Biden candidacy. I haven't seen the evidence of that we're excited about it. And that should not be surprising on the one hand, because there's no poll, survey, or study anywhere that suggests that even the good white Democrats are terribly excited about a rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And if you thought there was a way that something magical might happen to keep Trump off the ballot when you saw those results in Iowa, you realize that Trump is going to drive himself straight toward the nomination. We will see what Nikki Haley does in New Hampshire. And I suppose it's possible that in New Hampshire she pulls this off, but I think it's a foregone conclusion that when all is said and done, Donald Trump is going to be the nominee of the party. And so black folk are going to be in play this year in a major, major, major way. And there'll be all kinds of folk vying for that vote. Biden's going to do anything and everything he can to try to get the black vote. And he's going to need a huge turnout. He doesn't just need the black vote. He needs a significant turnout in the African American community. And if there's an enthusiasm gap, that's a problem. That's a real problem. And so they've got Kamala Harris on the stump doing everything she can to try to turn that reality around. But at the moment, things are a little hairy for the Biden administration. And one could argue that without question, he kept his word and put a lot of black faces in high places. But while symbolism is one thing, substance is another. And I think that's the question that black folk will be asking themselves. We know the president came through for us symbolically, but did he come through for us substantively? And I think that's the question many of us in the community will be wrestling with between now and then. So James Clyburn made some comments the other day that sort of rang some alarm bells for the Biden campaign. And I'm pleased to have our friend and brother, the powerful and prominent South Carolina Democrat, former House Whip, on the line with us right now. My friend Congressman Clyburn, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, man. If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am doing extremely well, and I'm not going to complain. I'm delighted to have you on the line. I know you're a busy man. I know things happen, and we got you a little late, but we got about 10 minutes here. Let me see if I can make the most of it. So everybody saw your comments the other day that rang some alarm bells with the Biden camp. For the audience, tell me what you said and tell me whether you were alarmed by all the bells that it rang.
Well, my whole concern, and I said that I'm concerned, and I was even asked prior to that, was I worried? No, I'm not worried. But I'm always concerned when I see incomplete stories being written about Joe Biden's record. And I use as an example the student loan debt issue. Mm-hmm. We heard all of this stuff about Biden did not keep his promise on eliminating student loan debt. And when you ask people why, it's because of the case that went to court and is declared unconstitutional. I said, well, do you know about these other 4 areas of debt that he eliminated to the tune of $132 billion? I couldn't find a single soul who was complaining who knew that he'd eliminated $132 billion in student loan debt. And the guy that drives for me often when I'm in South Carolina is a law enforcement fellow. When I finished talking, as you heard me the other day, I got in the truck with him, and he said to me he had gotten a letter forgiving him of $400,000 in debt that he had for himself and his children. And nobody knew that. And so I just said, we've got to tell a complete story. And so that's what concerned me, and that's why we weren't breaking through this wall. So people like you, we've got to get this word to you so you will know of what has happened. And I'll tell you something else that's happened on the student loan debt. For the next 4 years, every 2 months, another 75,000 people will be eligible for student loan debt elimination. And we need to tell people that they don't. I haven't found anybody yet who know that. So that's just one example.
Sure. So is it? Let me ask a couple questions then, Congressman. Is your indictment of the media not telling the full story, or is your indictment of the Biden administration not getting its message out as they should?
Well, it's a little both.
Okay.
It's a little both, and because there's some people in the media, you are accepted, of course, but there's some people will not put out the full story. There's some people call themselves in the media. I don't recognize them as being media. I think they're right-wing mouthpieces. They literally won't tell the full story. I've had it to happen to me all of my life. People will cherry-pick your statement sometimes to make it say what you want it to say. And that's what you get in this business, but I don't worry about that.
Let me ask you whether or not you believe, and I'm not asking you to run off a long list. I know you could do that if we had the time. But it seems to me that if you believe these polls and surveys and studies, and I know they're just a snapshot in time, and I know we're a long way away from November. I get all of that. What concerns me, though, frankly, is there's a pattern to these polls. And the pattern suggests that black folk are not abandoning Joe Biden en masse, but there is a softening, if I can use that word, a softening of support in the black community for Joe Biden. Some would point to the fact that for all that he did symbolically, putting these black faces in high places, we didn't get meaningful voting rights reform out of the Senate. We didn't get police reform out of the Senate. We haven't had a real conversation, a robust conversation as yet about reparations, and on the list goes. So again, he did what he said he was going to do in a lot of respects, but that support is softening for some reason. So my first question is, do you believe these polls that do show a pattern of soft black support for the president, you accept it or you don't?
Oh, I believe the polls, and that's my concern.
Right.
The polls are there. The question is, why? The polls are there. Look, no, we passed the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act 3 times out of the House, and it got filibustered in the Senate. That's not Joe Biden's responsibility. He doesn't run the Senate. We passed all the things that you're talking about. Regarding the law enforcement stuff. And we had the bill sitting in the Senate, and Tim Scott kept fooling around and would not ever sign on, and he would not ever allow the bill to go forward because one person can't hold things up in the Senate. And that's what happened to these bills. But what he did do on student loan debt, what he did do to broadband, we're going to have every house in South Carolina with broadband within 3 years. Why? Because Joe Biden put $65 billion in the infrastructure for that. My late wife died from diabetes. I went to a funeral, a 56-year-old young man who worked here on the Hill who just died from diabetes. And my late wife's bill, $800 a month. Now that's going to be capped for everybody going forward at her age, $35 a month. So Joe Biden has done the things that he could do. The PAC Act just got the word yesterday from a gentleman with whom I'm familiar, had been getting 25% disability. At my encouragement, he reapplied under the PAC Act. Now he's getting 100% disability, who was a Vietnam War veteran. So Joe Biden has done all of these things. So why do we emphasize the negative rather than accentuating the positive?
Why, it's a very good question. Let me put it right back to you. Why do you think, for all that he has done, and I do give him credit for this, he got a lot done, but for whatever reason, it's not connecting, according to these polls, not connecting with the public writ large? Why is Joe Biden, to your mind, not getting the credit for what he has done in these polls?
Because a lot of people tend to emphasize style over substance.
Ah, okay.
Joe Biden, stylistically, leaves things up to too much imagination. People like, well, you got to show me that you're fighting for me. Well, Joe Biden ain't going to go out yelling like Trump will. But I'll tell you what he won't do. He won't look in the TV camera and refer to a black woman as a dog, which he did to Omarosa. Not take out an ad in the New York Times and call it for the death penalty for 5 young men who went to jail, but later we found out they were innocent. Never apologized for having done that, but he did that. He did all he could to insult the first black president of the United States, and he is now arm in arm with Netanyahu. That every black person I see tells me that Netanyahu is the worst thing that ever happened to Israel, and Netanyahu is the best friend that this guy has, and he's over there buying time along with Putin, hoping that Trump will win in November so they can take over the world. So people got to get beyond the figures. We ain't going to always succeed every time. I lost 3 times before I ever got elected to office. So I didn't quit after losing 3 times. I'm not going to quit because we don't have the Voting Rights Act done. We're going to win this election, get us a Senate that we can deal with, and we're going to get the Voting Rights Act thing done. We're going to get the George Floyd stuff done. But you ain't going to get it by electing to office a guy who tells you up front he's got no respect for you. Yeah.
I got 2 minutes left, and I'm glad I got the 10 minutes with you. I'm always delighted to be in dialogue with you, Congressman. Here's my exit question. What does it mean that South Carolina is moved to the front of the line? I was just talking about the fact that it was tragic for me that on Dr. King's birthday, we had that nonsense in Iowa, the Iowa caucuses. Democrats, of course, pulled out of that, and South Carolina top of the map for the left. What does that mean that South Carolina goes first?
Well, it means, number one, that Joe Biden demonstrated his respect for black people. He said when he did it that he was doing this because he thought that the people of color should not be at the back of the line when we're trying to determine who the nominee will be. They ought to play a part earlier in the process before momentum is built in 2 states that will not have good representation of people of color. And he is trying to make sure that South Carolina, that has picked presidents for the last 4 or 5 terms, gets to say so before somebody is picked for the presidency, as was done before, and then lose in the general election.
Yeah. Well, it's a big deal. It's a big deal that South Carolina is first, and I was singing your praises before you came on about all that you have done to hold our government accountable, but indeed not just to support Joe Biden, but to hold him accountable. I told the story, and we all know that it was your endorsement and rallying black folk in South Carolina that saved his campaign. And I argued moments ago, it didn't just save his campaign, but given who he beat, it saved the democracy. So black folk in South Carolina helped save this democracy from itself. And for that, we are forever indebted. We'll get you back on the line when we have more time. But thank you for these moments today, Congressman Clyburn. I'll talk to you soon, sir. Have a great year.
Okay, brother. Thank you so much for having me.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Justice Department report says the 2022 Uvalde, Texas school shooting could have been stopped sooner. The DOJ released a nearly 600-page report today detailing the response to the shooting that killed 21 and injured 17 others. The DOJ said the response to the May 24, 2022 mass casualty incident at Robb Elementary School was a failure. The University of Texas Rio Grande Valley will be hosting a special performance at the Performing Arts Center tonight. The College of Fine Arts is presenting a recital by Clayton Stevenson, the first black finalist at the Van Cliburn International Piano Competition. Stevenson was also named a U.S. Presidential Scholar in the Arts in 2017. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org. Is this the time?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers are back at 500 after last night's 17-point win over Dallas at Crypto.com. Anthony Davis messed around and almost got a triple-double. 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists. D'Angelo Russell led the Lakers with 29 points. LeBron had 25 and 9 assists. The Lakers are at home Friday night against Brooklyn. LeBron's son, Bronny James, played a season-high 30 minutes last night in USC's Pac-12 conference game at Arizona. Bronny had 11 points and 6 assists. USC lost by 15. The Trojans are at Arizona State on Saturday. UCLA's men's basketball team overcame a 15-point deficit in the second half to win by 2 at Arizona State. The Bruins got 18 points from Lazar Stefanovic. Two historic HBCU football programs will play each other for the first time in 75 years. Grambling is hosting Tuskegee on September 7th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Staples Print Big Sale means the more you print, the more you save. Get $20 off your print purchase of $100 or more, $50 off your print purchase of $200 or more, and $100 off your print purchase of $300 or more. Ends 2/10/24. See staples.com/print for details. Print more, save more at Staples.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Anjali.
Hi, it's Jennifer Coolidge. I just got an alert for a strange charge on my card.
No problem. We make sure you're never held responsible for unauthorized purchases on your Discover card. Let's see. Did you purchase something from a t-shirt cannon store yesterday?
Absolutely not. No, I already have like 3.
$0 fraud liability guarantee. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard. Limitations apply.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
Every business seeks an advantage, whether it's having the best location, hiring top talent, or spotting trends before they happen. And now, the United States Postal Service can give your business a new advantage. Introducing USPS Ground Advantage. Reliable and affordable 2 to 5 day package shipping. It's the advantage you need at the price you want. Get the Ground Advantage at USPS.com/advantage. The United States Postal Service, delivering for America.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm John McKinney, your candidate for District Attorney. As an African American who has served our community for over 25 years, I'm proud to have successfully convicted the killer of Nipsey Hussle, standing up for justice where it matters most. But my commitment extends beyond the courtroom. I'm deeply invested in youth development. And when it comes to our police, I believe in accountability. It is essential that those who protect us are also responsible to us, reflecting the values and integrity of our community. This election, I ask for your vote. I am John McKinney, and I'm running to be your district attorney. Learn more at McKinneyforLA.com.
Paid for by John McKinney for LA District Attorney 2024.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
We appreciate and thank Congressman James Clyburn for that conversation moments ago. Always good to get the insight of the former majority whip. And without question, to my mind, the African-American who has most pull inside the Biden administration, given that he led the charge to save his campaign a few years ago in South Carolina. And one of the rewards for that was extracting from Joe Biden a commitment to place a black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court, which the president did in KBJ. And the other reward that James Clyburn gets for saving that campaign, that the president turns around and moves South Carolina to the top of to the front of the line, I should say, the top of the list for Democratic primaries. And so I appreciate, as always, the opportunity to have James Clyburn call into this program. Let me move now to James Pendle, a political reporter at the Boston Globe, renowned, of course, for his in-depth coverage of presidential elections and political analysis. Good to have James on the program. James, how are you today, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on. So I was just talking to James Clyburn, as you heard, and he got himself in a little hot water the other day, with some at least, when he said, and I quote, "I have no problem with the Biden administration and what it has done. My problem is that we have not been able to break through that MAGA wall in order to get to people exactly what the president has done," close quote. And James Clyburn makes a comment like that. The Biden administration pays attention. Certainly the campaign does. He basically was, as nicely as he could, chastising them, which he said to me a moment ago. It's not just, his comments were not just an indictment of the media, but an indictment in part of the campaign for not doing a better job at messaging. That's James Clyburn. How do you see it? Is it just bad messaging?
Well, certainly this is an argument that even Biden has argued in private to aides, saying that we're doing a great job and no one knows it. And clearly the poll numbers do reflect that people are not into this administration at the moment. Enthusiasm, even among Democrats, is way down, and something's got to turn around. But maybe at the end of the day, Biden decides this is going to be a two-person race, me versus Donald Trump, and if I can make Donald Trump an existential threat to democracy, then who cares exactly if Bidenomics is working?
I saw that story that you, of course, saw. We all saw in the Times. I believe it was yesterday, about the point you just made, that the person that the Biden administration most wants to run against is Donald Trump, because they recognize that based on this democracy argument that they're making, that Donald Trump is bad for democracy, they think they can take him. They beat him before, and they think they can take him again. So they want Donald Trump more than Nikki Haley or somebody else. Nikki Haley or somebody else throws too many monkey wrenches into the situation. So they believe that Donald Trump is the person they will do best against in a rematch. But they're also scared that this same guy is the guy they don't want to lose to your point, because of the existential threat that he poses to our democracy. How did you read that story, that the Biden administration is of really two different minds about Donald Trump?
Yeah, look, I mean, what's amazing is if you go back to the 2020 campaign, it was all about electability. And Joe Biden was seen as the person who was the one Democrat who could beat Donald Trump. And a lot of folks would say, I don't know, I could beat him too. I could beat him too. I think it turns out that election was so darn close that Joe Biden was the only person who could have defeated Donald Trump. And now, on the converse, it may be that Donald Trump is the only person who could lose to Joe Biden. The polls are pretty clear. The polls are pretty clear here. The Wall Street Journal poll shows Nikki Haley beating beating Joe Biden by 17 points. Sort of an outlier. Other polls show her beating by 9. But again, it's not a close contest like it is Trump versus Biden.
Yep. So, assuming that Donald Trump is a presumptive Republican nominee, let me pause for a second. You do believe that, do you not?
Yes.
Okay. So we're on the same page about that. Assuming that's the case, maybe it's really not a two-person race. I know what you meant when you said a two-person race, the two major parties. But RFK is out there, and he's really kicking up some noise and raising money. Cornel West was a guest on this program on Monday of this week. He's out there, and he's getting on ballots in certain states. Said to me on Monday he hopes to be on about 45 states ballots by the time this thing really comes down to it, maybe 35, 45, but enough to do some damage. So my question is it really a two-person race this time around? There's a lot of volatility out there based on all the stuff that you know and write about. Trump's numbers are questionable. Biden's numbers are questionable. Trump's got all his drama. Biden has his best chance of winning is if Trump gets indicted. That may or may not happen. But there's a lot of volatility out there, and I'm not so sure, James, this really is a two-person race this time around.
Tavis, this is why you're a legend. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Look, when everyone wants to talk about and analyze, what does Joe Biden need to do? How does he get his base back? Or how does Donald Trump, convince suburban voters this time to go along with him? We are not looking at this as a two-person contest. That is not how this race is going to go out. I mean, look, my goodness, 57% of America does not want this matchup to happen again. So we're really looking at 4 factors here, and they're all external, and they have nothing to do with Joe Biden. Well, I guess they have something to do with Donald Trump.
Give them to me. Number one
is going to be number one will be these third-party folks running, these other independents running. Will they get ballot access? How much of a factor will they be? Will they even win? Will one even win a single state? I'm talking about the folks you mentioned, and if there's a no labels ticket.
Right.
Number 2, these Trump trials. If he is convicted, we keep hearing, and I see it at the Trump rallies I go to. These folks are obviously still with him, but really, will independent voters, swing voters, really want a convicted felon to be the president? And logistically, does he go to jail? Like, how does this work? And third, and we don't talk about this enough, these are old guys. Like, there could be a health scare, and everyone looks at Joe Biden. It could be Donald Trump. So we're assuming, by the way, that they're all healthy and that is an issue. And fourth, I don't know where we're going to go with all these international wars. I don't know if we're going to be in World War III. I don't know if the Middle East will expand, become a bigger factor in this race. But those are the 4 major factors, as I see it, that impact the race a heck of a lot more than messaging out of the White House for Joe Biden. Speaking
of these wars, so Netanyahu, Bibi, Prime Minister of Israel, has said, I'm reading now from this AP News, Associated Press story. Netanyahu says he has told the U.S. that he opposes a Palestinian state in any post-war scenario. Let me repeat that. This is breaking news. That Bibi Netanyahu says that he has told the U.S. that he opposes a Palestinian state in any post-war scenario. So much for the two-state solution. It seems to me that there's a lot to unpack about that. Let me just pause for a second. When we come forward, I want to get James's thoughts on that, because it seems again to me that this offers Joe Biden an off-ramp, if you will, an already tough election. He might be wise to take it, but this offers the president an off-ramp when Bibi Netanyahu says publicly that he's told the U.S. that he absolutely outright opposes any Palestinian state in any shape, form, or fashion in a post-war scenario. That's news, and we're going to parse it when we come forward. James Pendle of the Boston Globe on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Can't sleep with this cold.
Honey.
Honey?
Honey, you need NyQuil Severe Honey.
NyQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a dreamy honey taste.
Feeling better, honey? Honey? I'll take that as a yes.
Try NyQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu symptom relief. NyQuil Severe with honey flavor. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, fever. Honeylicious, best sleep with a cold medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyaudio.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyaudio.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black. Who
do you trust to get at the truth?
Tavis Smiley.
That's who. The conversation continues right now.
He does indeed with the legendary James Pendle at the Boston Globe, who I'm delighted to have on this program. He has laid out a nice frame for us to wrestle with. His point is that there are 4 factors that will impact this race that have nothing to do really with Joe Biden or Donald Trump per se. One is these third-party candidates like Cornel West and RFK. The second is these Trump trials, which could go any number of ways, although I don't think there's a conviction coming between now and Election Day, and I blame Merrick Garland for that, for dragging his feet. I digress on that for now, and allowing Donald Trump to run the clock out, which we knew he was going to do anyway. Number 3, these guys are old. They're chronologically gifted, and anything could happen at any moment. And number 4, these wars that are just it's impossible to predict where we're going to end up on that. So you heard me say, you gave me that cue, James Pendle. I took the segue and ran with it. So Netanyahu has said publicly now that he's already told the U.S. So the Biden administration already knows this, that he opposes a Palestinian state in any post-war scenario. As I said, I think it offers the president an off-ramp here. You've seen the numbers that I've seen, that there are a lot of Americans that are not in step with the way that the Biden administration has managed this process, young people in particular. So what should the president do now that Bibi has gone public with this statement?
Look, this is in line with a lot of complicating things that Bibi has made of this whole situation. It's amazing he's still in power, number one, right? Mm-hmm. He was supposed to be on his way out. He became a wartime prime minister. The war cabinet agreed to let him stay. He's obviously trying to ride this out, and he's playing down the line. But nonetheless, I mean, this is also the same guy, as we cannot forget, who snubbed Biden when he was vice president during a visit to Israel by increasing settlements in the West Bank, even though he promised he would not. This is during the visit. Now, nonetheless, I do think it does create an opportunity, you're right, for an off-ramp, and I think it does. I don't know why we're not discussing this more, why there isn't more pressure from Joe Biden to simply, the first step is to actively try to get Bibi removed from office. I know it's not his job. Mm-hmm. I know he can't meddle. But nonetheless, the United States has a ton of strings, and Bibi Netanyahu is not a legitimate prime minister by their own votes in Israel. So, I mean, it's a coalition hanging by a string just because it's a crisis situation. But, you know, whether it's the attacks in southern Lebanon, which could expand things, whether it's the covert things that are happening with Iran right now with Israel, this situation is getting worse. It's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and more people are waking up to that, and it is a huge political problem now for Joe Biden. It's not October 8th. We are months later.
No, I hear you. I'm trying to juxtapose, James, as you speak, your comment of what Biden and the administration ought to be doing, which is trying to get Bibi out of office. I'm trying to juxtapose that strategy with the hug on the tarmac when he landed in Israel weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's very important for Biden to show that the United States stands with Israel. There's no question about that. Mm-hmm. And he was very firm in that the moment after these attacks. Israel and Bibi Netanyahu are two different things, just like innocent Gazans and Hamas are two different things.
Yes.
And so guiding policy going forward, you can hit that juxtaposition by being with Israel, but maybe not with Bibi.
Fair enough. Our remaining moments with James Pendle when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey LA, save water and put money in your pocket with rebates from LADWP. Start saving with free shower heads and faucet aerators. Then save with every flush when you upgrade to a water-efficient toilet and get a $250 rebate. You can also save on every load of laundry with a high-efficiency clothes washer and get a $500 rebate. That's right, LADWP customers can get $500 rebates on qualifying clothes washers. See all the ways to save at ladwp.com/save.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I want to go back to these poll numbers for a moment, James Pendle, before I lose you here in about 4 minutes at the top of the hour. I wonder if part of the issue with Biden's numbers is that the Democrats have not had any caucuses or primaries this year as yet, and that Trump and the Republicans have essentially dominated the news channels for the past few months with their message headed toward the Iowa caucuses earlier this week.
That may be. Obviously, Biden just only had his first campaign event a few weeks ago, so that's absolutely fair. At the same time, I mean, you still have to figure out, if you're the Biden campaign or the Biden White House, how is it that the economic numbers are actually pretty great? Even the stock market, which is not a way to judge the overall economy, is pretty great. Unemployment's pretty great. It's pretty historic. And Americans are not feeling that, obviously. They feel the inflation when they buy, wherever they buy. They see that every single day. So to tell that message of how things are actually going well in, say, the economy, or how he's prevented a broader war in Europe or a broader war even in the Middle East at the point, they are not making that case right now.
Yep. I was thinking while you were talking, James Pendle, that there is one other thing. Far be it from me. You're the expert here. You're the award-winning writer. But I want to, if I can, add one thing to your list. You gave me 4 things that are going to be impactful regarding this race outside of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I repeat, for those who may have just tuned in, the 4 things that James Pendle is watching. These third-party candidates like Cornel West and RFK Jr., the trials of Donald Trump, number 2. Number 3, the fact that they're old. Anything could happen at any moment to either one of them. And it may be Trump more than Biden if he keeps going to McDonald's every day. And number 4, these wars that James Pendle and I were just talking about. Anything could happen on this war front, including this comment by Bibi Netanyahu that's going to make all kind of people go crazy, that he does not want a Palestinian state, period, in any post-war scenario. That answer is going to drive people crazy. I digress on that for now. The 5th thing I would add on that list, James, is the Supreme Court. We don't know. We can assume we know. We can assume we know based on how the court is divided right now. That 63 conservative majority, but they've got some major decisions to make about Mr. Trump, and that is going to impact whether and how this thing goes forward. Would you accept adding that Supreme Court to list as number 5?
I do. I think we all make the same assumption what they're going to do. But if they want to throw a monkey wrench in it, they're absolutely a huge thing, and it's sitting there, isn't it?
Yeah. So that said, how do you think they're going to rule on these 2 issues? The 2 being, as you well know, 1, whether or not he gets on these ballots in all 50 states or not, and number 2, whether or not he can make this immunity argument successfully.
Yeah, look, on ballot access, this actually legally gets tricky for the court. I am curious how they're going to get out of this to affirm Trump's position. Not just to affirm Trump's position because maybe they lean that way, but generally speaking, the court does not want to be deciding a presidential election, and I don't think a lot of Americans want a court to decide the presidential election. Obviously, we're all glad they're taking it up now. The one situation we do not want is for Donald Trump to win in November, and then the court says, okay, now I'll take up the matter, and you're off. You can't do it. I mean, oh my God. You think January 6th was bad.
Yeah.
So we're glad they're taking that up. Obviously, the second matter is whether or not he could be in charge of the crime for doing anything while being president. And on that one, I think it's a little easier for them to rule in his favor, I guess, or rule in Jack Smith's favor. But again, glad to take that up at the moment.
Well, to your point, none of us wants the Supreme Court involved in a presidential race. Been there, done that. We've seen that film, and we know how it ended. Talking, of course, about Bush v. Gore. When the last time the Supreme Court got involved in a presidential race, didn't turn out the way many of us wanted to turn out. I digress on that for now. His name is James Pendle, political reporter at the Boston Globe. We'll do it again down the road, James, hopefully a few more times between now and November. Thanks for your insights today. Good to have you on.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Justice Department report says the 2022 Uvalde T2 mass casualty incident at Robb Elementary School was a failure. The University of Texas Rio Grande Valley will be hosting a special performance at